you. The FBI says 15 people have now been arrested, including members of a violent Tacoma street gang, as part of a massive fentanyl trafficking bust in Pierce County. The arrest follows an 18-month investigation in Pierce County that focused on criminal activities involving the Knockout Crips.
September 23, 2025. Seattle turned into a complete battlefield as ICE agents sealed truckloads of fentanyl, cocaine, heroin, and illegal weapons hidden inside warehouses linked to the Sinaloa Cartel. But what these agents discovered next proves this is not just a drug crisis. It's a full-scale invasion happening right now on U.S. soil. Tuesday, September 23, 2025, was suddenly disrupted as two helicopters thundered over the Seattle-Tacoma corridor, breaking the silence that hung over Puget Sound. The helicopters had lifted off minutes earlier from Joint Base Lewis McChord, carrying tactical teams and federal agents bound for a mission that had been months in the making. Beneath, convoys of armored vehicles were also speeding toward pre-marked targets. Operation Take Back America began as a joint DEA-ICE mission, with agents in black gear fanning out across warehouses, freight yards, and suburban garages, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Sirens echoed through quiet Tacoma neighborhoods, giving residents a shocking awakening. Moments later, the multi-agency team declared that this was one of the single largest joint operations that resulted in a massive drug bust. More than 51 individuals had been arrested, of which 37 Sinaloa Cartel members. However, that was not the shocking part. The agents also revealed that they had seized 4,165 pounds of meth, 269 pounds of fentanyl, 23 pounds of cocaine, and 6.4 pounds of heroin. The fentanyl was said to be enough to manufacture millions of lethal doses that could easily wipe out an entire state. And that's not all. The operation also led to the discovery of a stockpile of 23 automatic weapons and explosives. A complete infrastructure has just been discovered in one raid. As the sun rose over the Pacific Northwest, this bust only pointed to one thing. This was not a simple drug raid. It marked the moment the war on illegal drugs and weapons hit the homes in Seattle. Months of investigations across multiple states led to an 18-month operation that exposed encrypted communications, money laundering, and a vast smuggling network moving freely across U.S. highways. The coordination of the multi-agency team was praised as a model for future anti-cartel missions. They later also discovered that these drug shipments had arrived in semi-trucks disguised as legitimate goods. The people behind it used local warehouses as hubs and hired enforcers and freight lines to make sure drugs and weapons were moved across borders without attracting attention. And as news crews captured agents hauling bags of drugs and cases of illegal firearms, the bigger truth loomed. When cartels no longer smuggle into the country, but operate within it, the strategy changes. For the people living in the vicinity of these warehouses and freight yards, there was no going back to normal. The bell had rung, and the war had arrived, right outside their doorsteps. Once the federal agents pulled back the curtain, what emerged was not a ragtag trafficking ring. Far from it. It was an enterprise built to blend perfectly into the fabric of legitimate commerce. At the heart of it is the Sinaloa Cartel, the decades-old syndicate that for decades has dominated border smuggling routes and mastered the art of concealing their criminal activities away from border and national security agencies. However, this time, the cartel had pushed the limits even further. Rather than smuggling into the United States, it was operating from within, embedding logistical nodes across the country's neighborhoods, right within the very heart of America's populace. And the more the agents uncovered the truth, the more shocking the discovery got. Digging deeper, authorities identified the key masterminds behind this network. The names: Rosario Abel Camargo Banuelos and Francisco Fernando Camargo Banuelos. Both of them hailed from Sinaloa and had brought with them a new model of cartel management. Federal agents described it as more a logistics operation than a traditional narcotics syndicate. They had successfully orchestrated the forwarding of freight through legitimate trucking firms and customs brokers, and routed shipments from Mexico into California's freight hubs before moving them north along the I-5 corridor into Washington. They controlled the people and logistics, and had gone even as far as forging cargo manifests, declaring the contents as household goods and construction materials. These manifests, as well as carrier paperwork, made every load appear clean and, more importantly, helped the Banuelos make the agents look the other way. The brothers incorporated shell companies, creating cryptocurrency wallets and encrypting chat platforms, all in an effort to launder and manage the flow of money obtained from the sale of illegal drugs and weapons in Washington. According to one federal document, such a well-structured system only meant one thing. The cartel is no longer just the smuggler at the border, but a branch office operator inside the US, controlling transport, storage, and street distribution from a single integrated system. In fact, it also emerged that this cell might have been operating in the Tacoma area for nearly 2 years by the time the bust was made. Needless to say, the fact that it might have operated for that long without raising suspicion only triggers more worrying questions than answers. Everything you think you know about the Sinaloa network is about to be turned upside down. Hit subscribe now, because what comes next will reveal dangers lurking closer than you ever imagined. Next from the Sinaloa brothers, US authorities apprehended several key figures on American soil. Isabel Barisapon, an ordinary truck driver, was caught transporting multi-pound shipments of meth and fentanyl across state lines. Jose Felix German, a Mexican national deported in 2013, had illegally returned to the US to oversee financial operations and coordinate local distributors. Both now face at least 10 years in federal prison, with the potential for life sentences under US drug and firearms laws. Beyond the arrests, the numbers tell an even grimmer story. In the state of Washington alone, about 3,550 people lost their lives to drug overdoses in 2023, this marking the highest number ever recorded. Even more shocking is the fact that about 80% of these deaths were caused by overdosing on fentanyl and other synthetic opioids. Now imagine if the drugs seized had successfully found their way into the market. The repercussions would be a disaster, and it's possible that the state would have recorded yet another record number of deaths caused by overdosing on these drugs. Federal agents have warned that the situation would be so dire that morgues and emergency departments across the state would potentially be forced into crisis mode. The hard part of this was the human cost. Behind every number was a family, someone's child, another life lost. Once considered far from key smuggling routes, Seattle revealed that the crisis extended nationwide. Its spike in overdoses echoed patterns seen across the US. The next part will even throw the federal agents off balance. Extensive investigations have now revealed that the Sinaloa Cartel has gone as far as crafting counterfeit pills to look like common medications such as Adderall, Xanax, or oxycodone. Multiple tests have even confirmed that slightly over 50% of these counterfeits contain a lethal dose of fentanyl. That's about 6 in every 10 counterfeit pills in the market. Imagine taking a pill, trusting it to help with anxiety, ADHD, or pain relief, only to end up in an emergency room from a fentanyl overdose. It goes without saying that America might have just unearthed one of the most shocking syndicates of all time. The strategies that succeeded in previous cartel busts may no longer be enough, but America is adapting and finding more effective ways to fight back. Now, as the smoke cleared from the sweeping raids, the once unified narrative fractured into political echo chambers. One faction made up of officials from ICE pointed a stern finger at Seattle, accusing the city of soft-peddling enforcement. One of the officials was overheard declaring bluntly that public safety cannot be optional. On the other hand, the opposing faction, led by Seattle's city mayor, Bruce Harrell, fired back, labeling the crackdown as federal overreach and firmly reaffirming Seattle's sanctuary status. This even prompted protesters to storm the streets, chanting "Sanctuary for all," while others aired their support for ICE, holding up pictures of overdose victims, demanding a crackdown and reform. It was evident, aside from the war on the Sinaloa Cartel, the government also had to find a way to appease the public. Even with the seizure preventing an estimated 6.9 million potential deaths, authorities warn that 6 key suspects remain free, and the network's full reach is still unknown. The question now is not just whether the war is won, but what's next for a city caught in the crosshairs of crime, policy, and politics.